last thing on the list, was Escape from Mu, which we saw last time, but we're not actually looking at the game so much this time. We're going to look at the Steam page. Last time we looked at your game and we sort of played it, and I was blown away by this. I got really stuck, and it was one of those situations where if the chat hadn't have been there, I wouldn't have been able to progress. We're gonna do a little workshop on the Steam page because we looked at the game last month, and Aleo sort of suggested, can we look at text in the community stream? I thought, yeah, why the hell not? I'm not an expert in it. I've done marketing copy before, written the descriptions for games. I used to do, when I worked in Roblox games and when I worked on App Store games, I used to have to do the update descriptions of what's changed in the game and think about SEO and think about marketing language and how is the thing structured to make it sound exciting. A lot of marketing copywriting is a combination of, are you accurately describing the thing and are you making it exciting at the same time? Which is difficult. It's two different registers, right? And when we get taught to write, we get taught there are these distinct types of writing. So you get writing to inform, writing to entertain, writing to express, right? So poetry would be writing to express. And one of the things that's really difficult about marketing is you're writing to inform and tell people exactly what the thing is, but you don't actually want to tell people exactly what the thing is because that's not how you make it sound interesting, right? You can't just write to persuade and say, buy my game, it will change your life, because that's not telling people what it is. So you're mixing together informative writing with a type of writing which is more exciting, enticing, and about persuading someone to buy something by, using kind of emotion and stuff like that. Escape from Mu looks like it's going to be a escape room game, but very quickly, maybe not that quickly in my case, without the help of chat, you start to learn that you're not just doing the puzzles, but you have this mechanic that allows you to look at how the mechanism of the puzzle work and work it out from there. So it has this really interesting deductive element. Frederick said these images could definitely use some work. The first image is a ladder. Also should think about what the images should convey about what the game is about. Yeah, so I would totally agree with that. So let's look at the images before we get into the copywriting, because Frederick is absolutely right in the chat there. Wherever you've got an image like this, which is something that could be from any game, okay, all of the assets look okay, but this is just an image of looking down at some skeletons. And it's I've played a Bethesda game before. I know there are already games out there where I can look at a skeleton. Imagine if you were to describe this image with words. A character wearing a shiny bracelet looks down at some skeletons. It looks down at a pile of skeletons. Maybe that's a bit more exciting. But if you think about what's actually being depicted here, it's not very exciting, right? Looking at a skeleton in this game is only exciting if the skeleton is in an amusing place, or there has to be something else going on. So there's that element of what is being depicted in the image. If we were just to list the items in the image, there's a skeleton, there's some stone, there's some moss, there's a lovely sort of turquoise gem encrusted Rolex that's part of the gameplay. But if you just list the items that are being depicted, there isn't any action happening here. It's just a bunch of stuff we could look at, and the way it's arranged isn't particularly exciting. So there's that side of things, of depiction or representation of what is being shown, and then the other side of the visuals is the kind of composition of how are things laid out, what's the depth of this thing, does it look cool? All of that stuff kind of plays into making an image of a game look professional or look cool. This is not an interesting image in terms of what's being depicted, and we're also just looking down at the floor, so we don't get a sense of 3D depth or that there's lots of stuff going on in the background. It's not inviting us into a world, right, when we look at this image. So let's look at the other ones and try and find what we think is a good example, and then after we've done all this imagery stuff, we'll go and look at the marketing copy and this issue of how to accurately communicate what the game is and also make it sound exciting. This is a bit more interesting. If we were to describe this image using words, those sentences would start to have doing words in, right? They would start to have verbs in. The scarab beetle is flying, the trap is held up by a rope. We can start to make statements about the world that have doing words in, and that means that this image is probably a little bit more interesting. There are some elements about this image that make it look dull, like the fact that we've got a place where every texture is the same. It does kind of communicate the genre. It lets us know that this is a puzzle game, but there are some elements in this image that are still a bit dull. But if we compare these, like looking down at some skeletons, just conceptually is not as interesting as like a magical beetle flying through the air, and we can see all these working mechanisms of a trap, right? So this one is already more exciting. So if you were to go through all of your images and say, I'm going to cut out half of these images, right? You could go through this process of like, is the thing that's being presented interesting? Skeletons on the floor? No. Weird magical bug flying through the air and some trap mechanism. That's more interesting, and it's also giving us more of a sense of what the game is about. I mean, we could argue the skeletons do give a sense of what the game is about because you die a lot in this game, but it's not really showing us how they died, right? It's not like a pit full of spikes with all of the skeletons from your previous attempts in it. If you didn't see the previous stream, one of the nice things is you kind of get this Super Meat Boy, you know, echoes of all your deaths. You see the skeletons from where you died before, and they stay there when you reincarnate. I really like that element of the game, but this screenshot doesn't communicate that. So it's showing us something that's in the game, could be satisfying or fun, but if you haven't played the game, you don't understand from this screenshot what's going on. I don't think any of these shots of mechanisms really get across how complex working them out is. You kind of take the bug and you're able to fly behind the mechanisms and look at how they work, or fly under them and look at how they work, and then work the puzzle out. And then when you turn back into a human and you reincarnate, then you sort of have to then mentally rotate everything to be able to carry out the puzzle, the solution to the puzzle that you worked out while you were the bug. And I think to really kind of communicate what's cool about that, you need to show the most complex bits of the mechanisms from a cool angle. This image is doing nice stuff in terms of the lighting. It makes it feel a lot more dramatic. We're getting some nice compositional stuff here. We're getting a sense of depth. Your kind of like monkey brain immediately goes, what's around that corner, right? So the image is doing some nice compositional stuff that makes your brain ask questions about what's over there, what's down there, but it's still not kind of showing the cool thing about the game, which is these complex trap mechanisms that you get to see and work out, and that's kind of the core of the puzzle. I think this one is really good. It's a visually confusing image, right? But remember, if you are aiming for people that want to solve deductive puzzles, then I think this is the strongest image so far. Oh, there's a mechanism here, and there's a mechanism here, and there's a mechanism here, and there's some blocks over here. This is a really strong image in terms of conveying what the game is about. And this ladder one, I can see why you would include this, because the body in this game is very well rendered, and it's an impressive thing about the game. But I think if you want to show that, then maybe gameplay footage where, you know, you have a second of the character going up a ladder, and then they're in a position where they can look around, and then you see it's a puzzle game, you know. That's an interesting way to show that you have a full-bodied character and it's really well rendered. I don't think that's enough of a thing to bother putting a screenshot up of it, whereas this is a very strong still image in terms of conveying what's cool about the game to the target audience, right? If we compare it to this one, which is probably the weakest of the images, this one could be from a combat game, right? It's like, oh, I'm in a dungeon and 1, 2, 3, 4 skeletons just attack me and I beat them up with my fists. And then what's happening is your image is now communicating to the wrong target audience, because they think they're going to get Escape from Mu, the action game where you punch skeletons. This, out of all of the images, is the one that is the most likely to excite someone who is the right audience for this game, because it shows the complexity. I look at that image, it hurts my brain a little bit. It starts to induce the kind of thinking that you want from someone who enjoys puzzle games. What's going on here? How does this all fit together? The only way I'd be able to work out how that all fits together is to step into that image, and you can start to see how this is now a marketing funnel, and I'm being pulled into the thing that you want me to do, which is to add the game to my wish list so that I can go into that image and find out what's happening. Whereas even if this was like the best composed image and it was like a good camera angle and there was a bit more detail in the background, the image would not communicate what you want, because this game isn't Skeleton Puncher. This game is like a head scratching, like physical 3D puzzle game. That's kind of everything I have to say about the imagery. Let's see what people are saying in the chat, and then we'll move on to the marketing copy. Explore the remains of the lost civilization of Mu. Solve spatial puzzles crafted by primitive engineers using real mechanical principles. Fly as a scarab to explore and find your way out. This is already a good setup. You're already doing some things really well. So we've got sentences that start with verbs. Explore, solve, fly. On one hand, this is what you do in marketing. It's called a call to action. And basically, the psychological thinking behind this is when someone reads marketing copy that starts with a verb, their brain interprets it as an instruction, and that primes their brain to already do the thing, right? So, for example, when you're in a shop and it says buy one, get one free, right? Now, what that sentence is supposed to mean is if you buy one of these things, you will get another one for free. But because the sentence is front-loaded with the instruction, your brain interprets it as an imperative, like it interprets it as an instruction, like a thing you must do. Even though the sentence is ostensibly saying, if you do this, then this will happen, your brain starts to think about buying the thing because it started with buy the thing, right? And this is what we call a call to action in marketing. It's when you tell someone to do something. I'm terrible at this. Whenever I talk about our Patreon on YouTube, I always go, if you like what I do here, then maybe you give me some money, right? And the thinking in like marketing theory is that you just tell people what to do and then maybe you explain yourself afterwards. So this is already written according to that sort of established language in marketing where we say, do this, do this, do this. And the thing that's a nice overlap here is that in game design, it's often best to kind of explain your mechanics in this way as well, because it helps you to understand whether your game has a point, right? What are the actions? Kill enemies, collect treasure, da-da-da-da. So we've already got that here. I would say the thing that is slightly weaker here is that we have actions and we have some of them that feel sort of like they are pointing towards a goal, but the goal isn't super clear and the stakes aren't very clear, right? Explore the remains of lost civilization of Mu. That's sort of a goal. It's a very broad goal. And it doesn't have much stakes to it. It's not like something bad is going to happen if you don't do it. I think another thing that's missing here, if we think of the genre and we think of like Tomb Raider and Indiana Jones and all of that kind of archaeological exploration stuff, there's not a sense that you're saving the world by doing this, and there's not a sense that there's a interesting mystery behind everything, right? I think that is all implicit in the game. The mood and the feel is all there of mystery and intrigue, but this doesn't have it in there. So the components that this needs to have are, there needs to be a bigger stake of you're doing this to save something or to prevent something, or you're doing this to uncover some fantastical mystery that we don't know about. And at the moment, we've got find your way out as a sort of driver, as a motivator, as a sense of stakes of you need to find your way out. But that doesn't sound as perilous as it could do, right? And this is a game where we're dying a bunch of times and becoming a skeleton. So I would try and inject some peril into this. You're an archaeologist who is in this location and you're the only person who's ever been here, and you have a chance to uncover what happened to these mysterious people. There is this big archaeological stake of like, you're the only person who's ever found this place and now you can't get out and you're in peril. This might be the only chance a living person gets to explore this place and find out about it. And on top of that, if you don't live and you don't get out, anything you learn is going to be lost. The structure of these sentences is already there. You've already done the right thing of going like, do the thing, explore the thing, solve the thing. But what's not being communicated is this kind of emotional sense of peril, this kind of intellectual sense of like, you are role-playing as an archaeologist, and this archaeologist really cares about learning about this civilization, right? This accurately describes what you do in the game. I would say the order of it also feels a bit out, because fly as a scarab to explore and find your way out. Okay, find your way out is starting to hint at the stakes of like, you need to escape. But it doesn't make it sound as perilous as it could do. And flying as a scarab is a cool thing, but it's also like, I wouldn't put it at the end, because the end feels like the last sentence should hit, right? It should either be like the big whammy of the stakes coming in on the last sentence, or it should be like a question mark, like the last sentence is pointing towards the mystery, right? So that you can wonder about it. So I would go, 3-sentence structure is a good structure, and I would say, tell us who you are and why you're here in the first sentence. then tell us the game mechanics in the second sentence, and then the last sentence, try and treat it like a question mark. Not literally, not like it has to have a question mark, or it could be a will you be able to blah 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 type sentence, like will you escape, or will you die down here and lose the knowledge that you've you know, whatever the more elegant way of putting that is. I did a short video a few months ago about marketing copy, and we looked at a few examples, and I think Dredge was one of them. People always complain when I talk about like big indie games. It's like, that's not relevant. That's a game made by 10 people. It's like, well, yeah, I'm using it to talk about how the marketing copy is written. Dredge is a single-player fishing adventure with a sinister undercurrent. So they actually start with a sentence that is just, game title is da-da-da. And what they do here is they say single-player fishing adventure, so they very clearly describe the game genre from a gameplay point of view with a sinister undercurrent. And this is like mood. So this is a really powerful sentence, because if you imagine there are two types of people looking at your page, and there's a type of player that is very driven by mood and story, and then there's a type of player that only cares about certain types of games. So the single player fishing adventure is going to the mechanics person, and the sinister undercurrent is going to the mood themed story person. Of course, we all like games based on a combination of those things, but if you imagine these like two extreme people, then that's one sentence that is talking to both of these types of things, both of these types of appeals that people care about with their games. So first sentence, blah 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 is this type of game with this mood to it. And then we've got a call to action. The call to action isn't download the game, right? The call to action is telling you what you do in the game. Sell your catch, upgrade your boat, and dredge the depths for long buried secrets. So we're getting the sinister undercurrent, and the long buried secrets are giving us the mood. And the other thing that this sentence does is it starts with the most commonly done action in the game, and then it kind of moves out there to things that you do less often, and then it moves out there to the like big goal of the game, right? So sell your catch, you're going to be doing that a couple of times a session. It's the smallest game loop, it's the most repetitive part of the game. Upgrade your boat is like the investment part of the game loop. So you're selling your catch in order to get money to upgrade your boat. And because people are smart, you don't need to say, sell your catch to get money to upgrade your boat. People will naturally see how selling and upgrade relate to each other because they're not dumb. And then, and dredge the depths for long buried secrets, which is giving us mood and is also giving us stakes and like bigger story stuff, right? And you can see how it's starting with the moment to moment. It's going out to the midterm of like, the thing you're trying to do, why you're selling your catch, you're doing it to afford to upgrade your boat. And then the thing you're trying to do by upgrading your boat is to find out about these long buried secrets. If you're the developer of Dredge, or if you're the publisher at Team 17, turn this video off now, because what I'm going to say to Aleha about Escape from Mu is just copy this one. Because this is really good, right? The first sentence tells us what the game is. The second sentence describes the game mechanics, going from most frequent and moment to moment. What is the pleasurable thing I'm doing at every moment? Solving puzzles, transforming between a human and a bug, whatever. Starting with the most frequent, appealing thing, and then ending in the big picture stakes thing you're trying to do, which is to escape and uncover mysteries, right? Really powerful sentence. And again, it's mixing things from the two buckets. Here is a bit about the game mechanics, what you're doing, and here is a bit about why you're doing it and the bigger picture. It's packing loads into one sentence. The second sentence is doing exactly the same thing as the first. It's structured differently, but it's doing that same payoff of talking about mechanics and theme and mood at the same time. And then explore a mysterious archipelago. This is zooming out even further, right? So this is not the moment to moment. It's the what you were doing over the course of 3 to 10 hours, right? And discover why some things are best left forgotten. And that is a great bit of a sentence, because we've got a verb, you're discovering stuff, right? Which is helping to identify that this is a game about mystery and intrigue. And then why some things are best left forgotten is ominous, right? It's creepy. This is the language equivalent of doing show, don't tell. Because it's not saying explore a mysterious archipelago, which is really creepy, right? It's giving us the creeps by saying discover why some things are best left forgotten. It's promising that as a player, if you play this game all the way through, you're going to discover this. You're going to answer these questions. and then you're going to feel like a sense of regret about knowing that, which is like a deeply like Lovecraftian thing. If you think of like the cosmic horror genre, there is a detective or a journalist or something, they're trying to find out the truth about this supernatural horror, and once they learn the truth, then they regret it and they wish they hadn't got involved, right? And they go mad. That's what happens in Lovecraft, and that's what Dredge is based on. So maybe I take back what I said about copying this, because you don't want to copy it exactly, because the tone of how this is written is evoking Lovecraftian horror, right? So they have got a fishing game, and they've got 3 really tight sentences which take you through, you are fishing, you're selling your fish, you're upgrading your boat. That's the game mechanics. And then this broader mood-based thing, which is drawn from Lovecraftian cosmic horror, which is this sense of, you're going to uncover a secret, and then you're going to go mad because it's so dark and weird. I think if we go back to Escape from Mu, and we think about that same interaction, right? The interaction in Dredge is you've got a fishing game, that's the mechanics. Half of the description is about the fishing game mechanics, and then all the stuff to do with stake and mood is coming from the like the thematic genre of Lovecraftian horror. In Escape from Mu, we've got puzzle game mechanics of deducing and like looking at the environment and mentally rotating and all of this kind of juicy 3D puzzle stuff. And then the thematic side of things is coming from Tomb Raider, it's coming from Indiana Jones, and it's coming from whatever inspired those things, right? So, I don't know, like King Solomon's Mines, stuff like that. There's like archaeological fiction literature that some of this stuff comes from as well. And you have to think about what is the appeal of that, because that is how you get the stakes and mood and story part of your game, right? And your game in this case doesn't necessarily have to have a massive story, but it needs to give us that sense of like, what does this character that we're role-playing as care about in the world, and why are they where they are, and why are they doing this thing? And Susanoo, yeah, classic. Who, what, why, when, and how is all there. That's what Dredge is doing. I don't want to go through this and rewrite it for you, because I think that would be a different kind of workshop. And I'd rather give you like the tools to be able to do this yourself, because that's more helpful. And when I edit this down and make a short video out of it, as I inevitably will, it will be more helpful to tell people how to do the thing rather than showing them exactly. One of the issues with this Steam description is it sort of addresses the player as the player. What the Dredge description does is it assumes the player is already playing and has already taken on the role of a fisher person in a scary world. And it talks to you as if you're already that character. This talks to us as if we're like the player of a game, or the potential player of a game looking at a Steam page. If you think about the Dredge description and try and apply some of the principles here, then what I would be trying to do is rewrite this as if you're talking to the archaeologist. And then we assume that your target audience for the game wants to be an archaeologist and thinks being an archaeologist is cool, because they wouldn't play the game if they didn't think that was a cool thing to be. So you speak to the player as if they are an archaeologist uncovering a city and trying not to die and trying to escape and all of these things, rather than speaking to them, rather than like breaking the fourth wall and talking to them as if they're a player. And I think that will solve a lot of the potential problems here. It's not a bad description. It's doing a lot of things right. It's doing those sentences that start with verbs that we're taught to do in like marketing speak. But it's not engaging the player as if they're already engaged with the game, which is, I think, the thing you need to do when you're writing marketing copy for games. There's nothing here where they've had to tell you, in this game, you take on the role of a fisherman in a scary world. It's like implying all of that stuff by how it speaks to you, and it's doing that in 3 sentences. None of that is easy. None of that is like this one trick will help you sell as many copies as Dredge. I'm gonna cut this down and call this video that. Right? It might also help if your game is signed to Team 17 and you have their marketing budget and all of that kind of stuff. But it is giving us a really good guide for like how to do this well, right? And remember, every time you see this and it's from like a indie publisher like Annapurna or Team 17 or Devolver or whatever. This is not the game developer writing. I mean, it might be the game developer writing this, but they probably have a marketing expert there who really knows what they're doing. So when you have the chance to learn from a game like this, you should, because you know that this has come from like a marketing expert who knows more about this than you do or I do, because it's from a publisher that has marketers working at it, right? So looking at what they're doing, understanding what they're doing, and trying to copy it a bit is often better than just sort of like trying to abstractly look at your own game and just like work out from first principles from scratch, like how do I write marketing copy for a game. So I'm gonna stop there because I feel like we're just repeating a lot of the same things over and over again. But let's just pop in the chat one last time before we end the stream. Publishers hate this one trick.